The silence from Earth lasted 3 months. At first, the Council did not notice. They were busy with other matters, trade disputes, border conflicts, the endless small problems that came with ruling 1,000 worlds. But slowly, the absence became impossible to ignore. No human ships appeared at trading posts. No human voices spoke on communication channels. No human signals reached the monitoring stations that surrounded the Sol system. It was as if 8 billion people had simply vanished. High Arbiter Viren sat in his private chamber, reviewing the latest reports. His white eyes moved across the data without expression. "Nothing," said his aide, a small creature named Tor. "Our sensors detect activity within the Sol system, but we cannot see what they are doing. They have put up some kind of shield." "A shield?" Rand's voice was calm. "Interesting. They are hiding from us. Should we send ships to investigate?" Viren considered this. The Exile decree gave the Council the right to enter the Sol system if Earth did not comply with the terms. But sending ships felt like an admission that something was wrong. No, he decided. Let them hide. Let them build their little walls. When the year is up and they have not evacuated their colonies, we will deal with them properly. Tor bowed and left. Viren returned to his reports. But somewhere in the back of his ancient mind, a small voice whispered that something was not right. On the border of Council space, Station 12 floated in the darkness between stars. It was a monitoring post, staffed by a crew of 50 aliens from various species. Their job was simple: watch the edges of known space and report anything unusual. Commander Bex was in charge of Station 12. He was old and tired, counting the days until retirement. Nothing interesting ever happened at border stations. That was the whole point. He was drinking his evening tea when the alarms began to scream. Bex spilled hot liquid across his desk as he rushed to the main screen. "What is it? What's happening?" His sensor officer, a young female with 3 eyes, was shaking. "Ships, Commander. Coming out of nowhere. I don't understand. There was nothing there, and then suddenly, the screen showed the space around Station 12. It should have been empty, filled with nothing but distant stars. Instead, there were ships. Hundreds of ships. They appeared like ghosts, fading into existence without any warning. No faster than light signatures. No energy bursts. They were simply not there, and then they were. "Identify them," Bex ordered, his voice cracking. The sensor officer's hands trembled as she worked. "The design. The signatures. Commander, these are human ships." The blood drained from Bex's face. "That's impossible. Humans don't have ships like these. They can't travel without leaving energy trails. No one can." But the evidence was right in front of him. The human ships hung in space, silent and dark. They were shaped differently than any vessel Bex had ever seen. Sharp and angular, built for speed and violence. They looked like weapons given form. "They're not responding to our signals," another officer reported. "They're just waiting." For a long, terrible moment, nothing happened. Bex stared at the screen, his mind racing. Should he call for help? Should he try to communicate? Should he run? Before he could decide, the human ships began to move. They surrounded Station 12 like wolves circling prey. Then, finally, a message came through. A single voice, speaking in perfect Council standard. "This is Captain Sung of the Earth vessel Vengeance. Station 12, you have 5 minutes to evacuate. After that, this station will be destroyed." This is not a negotiation. Bex found his voice. "You can't do this. We are a peaceful monitoring post." The Council exiled us," Sung interrupted. His voice was flat and cold. "They voted to push us into the darkness. Now we are in the darkness, and we have learned its secrets. 4 minutes remaining. The crew of Station 12 did not need to be told twice. They ran for the escape pods, fighting each other in their panic. Bex was the last to leave, looking back at the station that had been his home for 20 years. He made it to his pod just in time. As the small vessel shot away into space, he watched Station 12 explode in a bloom of white fire. The human ships did not pursue the escape pods. They simply waited until every survivor was clear, then destroyed the station with a single coordinated strike. After that, they vanished as quickly as they had appeared. One moment they were there. The next, empty space.bex drifted in his escape pod, waiting for rescue. His hands would not stop shaking. The news reached the council within hours. Station 12 was gone. The crew was alive but scattered across the void. And the humans had technology that no one had ever seen before. Viren called an emergency meeting. The Great Hall was filled with fear. How is this possible? Demanded Brel of Kess. Humans cannot build ships like that. Their technology was inferior to ours. It was inferior a year ago, said Knox quietly. Apparently, things have changed. This is an act of war. Another representative shouted. We must respond immediately. Send the fleet. But Viren raised his hand for silence. His ancient face was troubled. We do not know what we are dealing with, he said slowly. The humans have hidden themselves for 3 months. In that time, they have developed technology we cannot explain. If we attack rashly, we may suffer consequences we cannot predict. So we do nothing? Brel was furious. We let them destroy our stations without punishment. We wait, Viren said. We watch. We gather information. And when we understand what we face, then we will act. It was a reasonable decision. It was also exactly what the humans wanted. Over the next 2 months, 7 more stations disappeared. Each time, the human ships appeared from nowhere, gave a warning, and destroyed the station after the crew evacuated. They never killed anyone. They never took prisoners. They simply erased the council's eyes and ears along the border. And each time, they vanished before any response could arrive. The council sent patrol ships to guard the remaining stations. The human fleet destroyed them too. Not all at once, but slowly, carefully, picking off ships one by one whenever they were alone. The patrols stopped traveling alone. They moved in groups of 10, then 20, then 50. Still, ships disappeared. Still, no one ever saw the humans coming until it was too late. Fear spread through the council like a disease. Representatives who had laughed at the exile decree now woke in cold sweats. They had pushed humanity into a corner, and something had emerged from that corner that they did not recognize. In his private chamber, Viren stared at a map of council space. Red dots marked every lost station, every destroyed ship, every place where the humans had struck. The dots formed a pattern. A circle closing slowly around the heart of council territory. The humans were not attacking randomly. They were preparing, building towards something. Viren was very old, and he had seen many things. But for the first time in centuries, he felt something he had almost forgotten. He felt afraid. The human fleet emerged from the void on the anniversary of the Exile vote. It was not a coincidence. They appeared around the Council's capital world, the great planet of Ven Prime, where Viren and the other rulers lived. One moment, the sky was clear. The next, it was filled with ships. Not hundreds. Thousands. Captain Sung stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching the chaos unfold on the planet below. Defense stations powered up. Warning sirens screamed. Ships launched in desperate confusion, trying to form some kind of line against the invaders. It was already too late. Open all channels, Sung ordered. His voice was calm, almost bored. Broadcast to every frequency. His communications officer, a young man named Jin, worked the controls. All channels open, Captain. Soong leaned forward and spoke. His words reached every ship, every station, every communication device on Ven Prime and beyond. This is Captain Soong of Earth. 1 year ago, you voted to exile my people. You told us we were not welcome in your union. You told us to go back to our small corner of space and stay there. You told us we had no choice. On the planet below, Bjorn listened from his private chamber. His white eyes were fixed on the window, watching the dark shapes that filled the sky. You were wrong, Soong continued. We had a choice. We chose to reject your judgment. We chose to refuse your punishment. We chose to become something you never expected. Admiral Tay's voice came through the command channel. He was aboard the Defiance, leading the main fleet. Captain Soong, status report. The planet is surrounded, Admiral. Their fleet is scattered. They have no coordinated defense. Good. Continue the broadcast. Soong nodded to himself. You exiled us because you were afraid. You saw humanity growing, learning, becoming stronger. You did not like it. You wanted us to stay small and grateful. But we are not built for smallness. We are not built for gratitude. Commander Hana's ship, the Justice, moved into position above the Council's main government building. She watched the streets below, filled with aliens running in panic. We spent 1 year in silence, Soong said. 1 year working, building, preparing. You thought we were hiding in shame. You thought we had accepted our fate. You were wrong. We were getting ready. The Council fleet finally formed something like a line. 300 ships, the best the Union had to offer. They faced the human armada, weapons charged and ready. Against them stood 2,000 human vessels. Each one carried technology that the Council could not understand. Engines that left no trail. Weapons that struck from impossible angles. Shields that turned energy into nothing. Admiral Tay gave the order. Disable their fleet. No kills unless necessary. We want prisoners, not corpses. The battle lasted less than an hour. Human ships moved through the Council fleet like shadows. They appeared behind enemy vessels before sensors could track them. They fired weapons that cut through shields like paper. They worked together with perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. Ship after ship fell silent. Some were destroyed. Most were simply disabled. Their engines dead. Their weapons offline. The crews floated helplessly in the void, watching their defeat unfold. When it was over, the Council's entire military force lay broken in space. Not one human ship had been destroyed. Not one. Soong finished his broadcast. You exiled us once. There will not be a second time. You pushed us into the darkness, and we became the darkness. Now we have returned, and everything has changed. The channel went silent. On Ven Prime, the population huddled in their homes. The streets were empty. The government buildings were surrounded by human troops who had descended from the sky without warning. There was no fighting. There was no resistance. Everyone knew it would be pointless. Admiral Tay landed at the Council Hall as the sun set over the city. He walked through the massive doors, past 1,000 empty seats, to the central platform where Viren waited alone. The High Arbiter looked old. Older than before, as if the past year had aged him a century. His wide eyes studied Tay without expression. So, Viren said quietly, you have won. What now? Will you kill us all? Burn our cities? Take revenge for your exile? Tay stopped a few feet away from him. We are not interested in revenge. Then what do you want? Tay looked around the great hall. He remembered standing in the observation deck, watching these same seats fill with representatives who voted to cast out his people. He remembered the anger he had felt, the cold determination. We want what we always wanted, he said. Respect, equality, A place in the galaxy that we earned, not one that was given to us as charity. Ren's thin lips twisted. You have a strange way of asking for respect. You destroy our stations. You defeat our fleets. You invade our capital. This is not respect. This is conquest. Yes, Tay agreed. It is. Because we learned something important during our exile. We learned that respect is not given. It is taken. We asked nicely for 50 years. We followed your rules. We tried to fit in. And what did we receive? Exile, punishment, shame. He stepped closer to VR. So we stopped asking. We stopped following. We built our own rules, and now we are here to enforce them. What rules? Rand's voice was barely a whisper. Simple ones. Tay held up one finger. First, humanity will never be exiled again. We go where we want, when we want. No one votes on our future but us. A second finger. Second, the Council will continue to exist, but it will include humanity as an equal member. No more watching from observation decks. No more decisions made about us without us. A third finger. Third, any species that threatens Earth or its colonies will face the full strength of our fleet. Not warnings. Not votes. Action. Bjorn was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, "And if we refuse?" "You cannot refuse." Tay lowered his hand. "That is the point. You spent centuries telling other species what to do. You exiled anyone who grew too strong. You kept the galaxy under your control through fear and manipulation. Now the balance has shifted. Now you will learn what it feels like to have no choice." The irony was not lost on Bjorn. He had used those exact tactics 1,000 times. He had told countless species that they had no options, that they must accept the Council's will. Now a human was saying the same words to him. How did you do it? Bjorn asked suddenly. The technology. The ships. The weapons. You were decades behind us. How did you advance so quickly? Tay smiled slightly. You exiled us. You cut us off from your knowledge, your resources, your trade networks. You thought that would weaken us. Instead, it freed us. We stopped trying to copy your technology and started creating our own. We stopped following your path and found a new one. He turned to leave, then paused. There is an old human saying, High Arbiter. What does not kill us makes us stronger. You tried to kill humanity's future. Instead, you made us into something you cannot defeat. Tay walked out of the council hall without looking back. Behind him, Bjorn sat down slowly in his chair, staring at nothing. The exile had been meant to end humanity. Instead, it had transformed them. And now there was no going back. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was built to make anyone who entered feel small. The ceiling rose so high that clouds formed near the top. The walls were made of black stone that swallowed light. 1,000 seats circled the central platform, each one holding a representative from a different world. High Arbiter Viren stood at the center of it all. He was tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like old paper. His eyes were completely white, and when he spoke, his voice filled every corner of the massive room. We have heard the evidence, Viren said slowly. We have listened to the reports. We have considered all arguments. Now, we must vote. The holographic screens above each seat lit up with the same question. Should Earth be exiled from the Galactic Union? Admiral Tay watched from the observation deck high above the council floor. He was not allowed to speak. He was not allowed to vote. He could only watch as the rulers of 100 worlds decided the fate of his planet. Tay was 53 years old. His hair was gray at the edges, and his face carried the marks of a man who had seen many battles. He wore the black uniform of Earth's space fleet. and his hands were clasped behind his back so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. Beside him stood his aide, a young woman named Yuna. She was barely 30, with sharp eyes and a mind even sharper. She held a small device that recorded everything happening below. "They are going to vote yes," Yuna whispered. Every single one of them. Tay did not respond. He already knew. The charges against Earth were simple. Humans had expanded too fast. They had colonized 12 worlds in just 40 years. They had built a fleet larger than any other species in the Union. They had refused to share their technology. They had questioned the Council's decisions too many times, but the real reason was fear. The other species looked at humanity and saw something that terrified them. They saw a species that refused to slow down. A species that treated the impossible as just another problem to solve. A species that did not know how to accept limits. The votes began to appear on the screens. Yes, yes, yes. One after another, the lights turned red. Not a single vote of green appeared. Not one species stood with Earth. Viarn watched the results with something that might have been satisfaction. "The vote is complete," he announced. "By unanimous decision, Earth is hereby exiled from the Galactic Union. All human colonies will be evacuated within 1 standard year. All human ships will be confined to the Sol system. All trade agreements are cancelled. All treaties are void." A murmur ran through the council. Some of the representatives looked relieved. Others looked uncomfortable. A few even looked sad. But none of them changed their votes. "The humans brought this upon themselves," said Bro, the representative from the water world of Kess. His voice was wet and gurgling. "They grew too powerful too quickly. They did not respect our ways." "They did not respect anything," added Nox, a small creature with too many eyes. "They looked at our ancient laws and laughed. They called them outdated." Viarn raised one long hand for silence. "The decision is made. We will send an envoy to deliver our verdict. Earth will comply, or Earth will face the consequences." High above, Admiral Tay finally moved. He reached out and took the recording device from Yuna's hand. He looked at it for a long moment, then he crushed it in his fist. Yuna's eyes went wide. "Sir, that was the only record." "I do not need a record," Tay said quietly. "I will remember every face, every vote, every word." He turned and walked toward the exit. His boots made no sound on the polished floor. Yuna hurried to follow him. "What do we do now?" she asked. "Sir, they have exiled us. The entire human race. Where do we even begin?" Tay stopped at the door. He looked back one last time at the council chamber, at the 1,000 representatives who had just condemned his people. Then he smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who had just received exactly what he expected. "We go home," he said. "We tell Earth what happened here today. And then we prepare. Prepare for what?" Tay did not answer immediately. He pushed through the door and walked down the long corridor that led to the landing bay. His ship, the Defiance, waited for him there. It was a small ship, built for speed rather than battle. But it carried within it something more dangerous than any weapon dot. It carried news that would change everything. When they reached the ship, Tay finally spoke again. "Do you know what the Council's greatest mistake was today?" Yuna shook her head. "They think exile is a punishment," Tay said. He climbed the ramp into the ship and settled into the pilot's seat. His hands moved across the controls with the ease of long practice. "They think we will cry and beg and ask for forgiveness. They think we will accept their judgment, will we not?" Yuna asked carefully. The engines of the Defiance roared to life. The ship lifted off the landing pad and shot toward the stars. "Humanity does not beg," Tay said. "We do not ask permission. When we first reached for the stars, They told us it was impossible. When we built our first colony, they said we would fail. When we joined the Union, they said we should be grateful for the opportunity. He set the course for Earth. The journey would take 3 days at maximum speed. 3 days to carry the news of exile back to 8 billion people. They have made their choice, Tay continued. They voted to push us out. They think they are removing a threat. He looked at Yuna, and his eyes held something cold and patient. They do not understand. They have not removed anything. They have simply shown us who our enemies are. The Defiance jumped into faster-than-light travel. The stars stretched into lines of light, and then the ship was gone, racing toward a small blue planet that had just been cast out of galactic society. Back in the council chamber, the representatives were already celebrating. They drank and laughed and congratulated themselves on solving the human problem. None of them noticed that their victory felt hollow. None of them wondered why Admiral Tay had smiled instead of raged. None of them stopped to think about what happens when you corner an animal that does not know how to surrender. But they would learn. In time, they would all learn. The envoy ship landed at Seoul Station on a cold morning in March. The sky was gray, and a light rain fell across the city. Commander Hannah stood at the edge of the landing pad, watching the alien vessel descend through the clouds. She was 40 years old, with black hair cut short and practical. Her uniform was simple, without decoration or medals. She did not need symbols to prove her worth. Everyone who knew her understood that she was one of the most dangerous people on Earth. Beside her stood a squad of soldiers in full combat gear. Their weapons were not raised, but they were not hidden either. The message was clear. Earth would be polite, but Earth would not be weak. The ship touched down with a soft hiss. It was a beautiful vessel, all curves and silver metal. The Galactic Council loved beauty. They loved art and music and poetry. They believed that civilization meant elegance. Hana believed that civilization meant survival. The ramp lowered, and the envoy stepped out. His name was Cole, and he was one of Ren's most trusted messengers. He was shaped like a human, but his skin was blue, and his eyes were gold. He wore robes of white silk that cost more than most families earned in a year. "Commander Hannah," Cole said, walking forward with his arms spread wide. "It is an honor to meet you at last. Your reputation reaches even to the council halls." Hannah did not move. "You come with a message, straight to business." Cole smiled, showing teeth that were slightly too sharp. "Very well. I bring the official decree of exile. You have 1 standard year to evacuate all human colonies. Your ships must return to the Sol system and remain there. Any human vessel found beyond your borders will be destroyed." He pulled a small crystal from his robes and held it out. The decree was stored inside, written in 100 languages. Hannah looked at the crystal. She did not take it. "The council has voted," Cole continued. "The decision is final. There is no appeal, no negotiation, no compromise. Earth is exiled. This is simply how things are." The rain fell harder. Water ran down Hannah's face, but she did not blink. "Tell me something, Envoy Cole," she said quietly. "How many species has the council exiled before us?" Cole's smile flickered. "Several. Over the centuries. And what happened to them? They accepted their fate. They retreated to their home systems. Some survived. Some did not. The galaxy is dangerous for those without friends." Hannah nodded slowly. "So the council pushes out anyone who becomes too strong, anyone who might challenge their power. And those species simply accept it. They go quietly into the dark." "It is the way of things," Cole said. "The council keeps peace. The council maintains order. Without the council, there would be chaos and war." "There will be chaos and war anyway," Hannah said. "You have made sure of that." Cole's golden eyes narrowed. Is that a threat, Commander? No. Hana finally reached out and took the crystal from his hand. She held it up to the gray light, watching the colors shift inside it. It is a promise, but not the kind you are thinking. She crushed the crystal in her fist. The fragments fell to the wet ground like broken stars. Cole stepped back, his face showing real surprise for the first time. You cannot do that. That was an official decree from the Galactic Council. I know what it was. Hana opened her hand and let the last pieces fall. Now it is nothing. Go back to your masters, Envoy. Tell them what you saw here today. Tell them that Earth received their message. And your response? Cole's voice had lost its smoothness. Now it was sharp with anger. What shall I tell the Council? Hana turned to look at him. Her eyes were dark and steady, without fear or doubt. Tell them that humans do not take orders. We give them. Tell them that we did not ask to join their union, and we do not need their permission to leave. Tell them that exile means nothing to us. We were alone before we met them. We can be alone again. She stepped closer to Cole, and something in her presence made the alien take another step back. But most importantly, Hana continued, tell them this. They get one chance. This is their one chance to apologize, to take back their vote, to treat humanity as equals instead of children to be punished. If they do not take this chance, they will not receive another. Cole straightened his robes with shaking hands. You are insane. All of you. The Council commands 1,000 worlds. You are one species with one system. You cannot fight them. You cannot win. We are not planning to fight them. Hana smiled, and it was the same cold smile that Admiral Tay had worn in the Council chamber. We are planning something much worse. What? What are you planning? But Hana was already walking away, her soldiers falling into step behind her. She did not look back. Cole stood alone on the landing pad, rain soaking through his expensive robes. He suddenly felt very cold, and not just from the weather. There was something wrong here. The humans should be afraid. They should be begging for mercy. They should be trying to negotiate. Instead, they seemed almost pleased. He returned to his ship and sent his report to the Council. He described everything. The crushed crystal, the threats, the strange calm in Commander Hana's eyes. He recommended that the Council send a fleet immediately to force compliance. The Council read his report and laughed. Let them make their empty threats, Viren said when the message reached him. In 1 year, when they have not moved, we will send ships to move them ourselves. They will learn, as all species learn, that the Council's word is law. The other representatives agreed. Humans were young and foolish. They would come to their senses. They had no choice. 6 months passed. Earth went quiet. No ships left the Sol system. No messages were sent. The human colonies began shutting down, one by one. The colonists returned home. The Council watched with satisfaction. See? The humans were obeying after all. The exile was working, but Cole could not shake his unease. He remembered Hana's eyes, and he remembered what she had said. They were planning something much worse than fighting. He just could not imagine what it might be on Earth. In a bunker deep beneath the mountains of Korea, Commander Hana stood before a massive screen. It showed the progress of 100 secret projects. New ships, new weapons, new technology that the Council could not even dream of. Admiral Tay stood beside her. The colonies are emptied, he said. Our people are home. The factories are running at full capacity. Good. Hana studied the numbers on the screen. How long until we are ready? 6 more months. Maybe less. Hana nodded. Then we stay silent. We let them think we have surrendered. We let them believe their exile worked. She turned to face Tay. And when we are ready, We show them exactly what humanity can do when we have nothing left to lose. The bunker hummed with the sound of machines working day and night. 8 billion people had received the news of their exile. 8 billion people had responded with the same answer, not with anger, not with fear, but with determination. The council had pushed humanity into a corner. Now humanity was going to push back. The surrender ceremony took place at dawn, exactly 1 week after the human fleet arrived at Ven Prime. The great hall of the council was filled once again. But this time, the mood was very different. 1,000 representatives sat in their seats, but they did not speak. They did not argue or debate or vote. They simply waited, watching the central platform where history was about to change. Admiral Tay stood at the center, wearing a new uniform. It was white instead of black, decorated with symbols that represented Earth and all its colonies. Beside him stood Commander Hannah, Captain Soong, and a dozen other officers who had made the human victory possible. Across from them stood Viorn, alone. The other council leaders had fled or hidden. Only the High Arbiter had the courage to face this moment. "We are gathered here," Tay began, his voice carrying through the vast chamber, "to mark the end of one era and the beginning of another. The Galactic Union has existed for 10,000 years under the rule of the Council. That rule ends today." A murmur ran through the representatives. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid. Most just looked tired. The past week had broken something in them. The species that had dominated the galaxy for millennia suddenly realized that their power was an illusion. "The Union will continue," Tay said. "Trade will continue. Peace will continue. But the structure must change. No longer will a small group of ancient species make decisions for everyone else. No longer will new civilizations be treated as children to be guided or punished." Hannah stepped forward, holding a document. It was printed on actual paper, a human tradition that the aliens found strange but somehow appropriate. "This is the new charter," she announced. "It establishes a reformed council with equal representation for all member species. Votes will be based on population, not age or power. Exile will be abolished as a punishment. No species will be cast out for growing too strong or thinking too differently." She placed the document on a table in front of Viorn. "Sign it, and the transition will be peaceful. Your people will keep their homes, their cultures, their lives. We are not here to destroy the Union. We are here to improve it." Viorn looked at the paper for a long moment. His white eyes moved across the words, reading each line carefully. Finally, he looked up at Tay. "You could simply take everything," he said. "Your fleet is unmatched. Your technology is beyond ours. Why bother with documents and ceremonies? Why not simply rule as conquerors?" Tay had expected this question. "Because that is not who we are. We could have destroyed your fleet completely. We chose to disable it. We could have killed millions during the invasion. We killed no one. We are not here for blood or revenge. Then what are you here for?" "Justice." The word hung in the air. "For 50 years, humanity tried to join your union as friends. We were treated as outsiders, as threats, as problems to be managed. When we grew too successful, you voted to throw us away. That was wrong. This charter ensures it can never happen again to us or to anyone else." Viorn picked up a writing tool. His hand trembled slightly. 10,000 years of history weighed on this moment. Everything his people had built, everything they had controlled, was about to change forever. He signed the document. The representatives watched in silence as the High Arbiter's name appeared on the paper. Some of them wept. Some looked relieved. A few even seemed hopeful, as if perhaps this change might not be as terrible as they feared. "Admiral." Tay took the signed charter and held it up for everyone to see. "It is done. The new union begins today." Outside the council hall, crowds had gathered. Not just aliens, but humans too, diplomats and soldiers, and ordinary people who had traveled from Earth to witness this moment. When word spread that the charter was signed, a cheer rose up that could be heard across the city. Commander Hannah stood at a window, watching the celebration below. Captain Sung joined her, 2 cups of tea in his hands. "We actually did it," he said, offering her a cup. "A year ago, they voted to exile us. Now we rule them." Hannah took the tea but did not drink. "We do not rule them. That was never the plan, was it not?" Sung raised an eyebrow. "Admiral Tay just made Viarn sign away 10,000 years of power. That seems like ruling to me." "No." Hannah finally sipped her tea. "We took their power to abuse others. We did not take their right to exist, to grow, to have a future. There is a difference." She turned to look at him. "The old council ruled through fear. They kept everyone small so no one could challenge them. We are building something different. A union where strength is not punished. Where new ideas are welcomed. Where every species has a voice. You think that will work? You think they will accept us as leaders? Not at first." Hannah set down her cup. "They will hate us for a generation. Maybe 2. But eventually, they will see that we are not like the old council. We do not exile those who disagree with us. We do not fear those who grow strong. We welcome them." In the hall below, Admiral Tay was speaking with representatives from a dozen different species. They were nervous, uncertain, but they were talking. That was a start. Viarn sat in a corner, watching everything with his ancient white eyes. A human officer approached him, Yuna, the young woman who had stood beside Tay on the day of the exile vote. "Aye, Arbiter," she said politely. "Admiral Tay would like to know if you will accept a position on the new council. Your experience and knowledge could be valuable." Viarn almost laughed. "You want me to serve on the council that replaced my council? That is unexpected. Admiral Tay believes in using every resource wisely. You ruled this union for centuries. You understand it better than anyone. Why waste that understanding?" The old alien considered this. He had expected execution, or at least imprisonment. Instead, he was being offered a job. "Your people are strange," he said finally. "You defeat us completely, and then you ask for our help." "We are practical," Yuna replied. "We do not let pride get in the way of good decisions." Viarn was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Very well. I will serve on your new council. Perhaps I can learn something from you humans after all." As the sun rose higher over Ven Prime, the celebrations continued. Ships from 100 worlds hung in the sky, no longer enemies but uncertain allies. The future was unclear, full of challenges and dangers, but for the first time, that future belonged to everyone. Admiral Tay found a quiet moment near a window, looking out at the stars. Hannah joined him, standing shoulder to shoulder. "We did it," she said quietly. "We survived exile. We came back stronger. We changed everything. Yes." Tay's eyes were fixed on the distant points of light. "But this is just the beginning. Building something new is harder than destroying something old. We have years of work ahead." "I know." Hannah smiled slightly. "But I think we can handle it. After all, we are human. We do not know how to give up." Tay smiled back. "No, we do not." Together, they watched the new day dawn over a galaxy that would never be the same. The rulers had voted to exile Earth, thinking they were solving a problem. Instead, they had created something they could never control. Humanity had arrived. And this time, they were not leaving.